She looked at me, said one sentence, and my entire life changed. Before we begin, I'd love to know something. Where in the world are you listening from? Tell me in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments what you think about this story when it's over. I really love reading your thoughts. The day the world paused. If there is one thing I have learned about life, it's that it rarely breaks you all at once. It leaks. Slowly. Drop. By drop. By drop. You don't even realize you're drowning until one day, breathing feels like labor instead of instinct. Back then, I didn't think of myself as sad. I thought of myself as busy, tired, focused, responsible. All the respectable words people use to hide the truth. Truth being, I had lost myself so gradually that I didn't notice I was gone. My mornings ran like a script. Alarm. Snooze. Alarm. Snooze. Stare at the ceiling. Avoid the mirror. Scroll through news. Through social media. Through strangers' lives. Coffee I couldn't taste. Shower I barely felt. Tie. Jacket. Shoes. Phone. Leave. Repeat. My job wasn't terrible, that almost made it worse. Terrible jobs make you dream of escape. Mine kept me comfortable, numb, quietly suffocated by routine. Spreadsheets. Budgets. Meetings about meetings. We talked about growth charts like they were sacred. We talked about projections, strategies, optimization, everything except whether our lives meant anything. We were paid to pretend it all mattered. By the time I'd crossed the street toward the office, I already felt exhausted, not from effort, but from emptiness. It wasn't always like that. Once, when I was younger, I had wanted things. Adventure, connection, music, sunrise hikes, late-night conversations about meaning. But somewhere along the line, life had become a hallway of closed doors. Every dream postponed, every emotion filed away. And I told myself, this is adulthood. Stop being dramatic. The day that changed everything wasn't dramatic either. No storm, no tragedy, no big dramatic soundtrack. Just an ordinary Thursday. Gray sky, wind that couldn't decide if it was cold, people moving like they were late to things they didn't even like. I walked faster than everyone else, like being still might allow something inside me to catch up. Head down. Hands tight, jaw clenched. Everything about my posture said, don't talk to me, don't see me. Let me disappear quietly. Then I heard it. Excuse me. Not loud, not scared. Just a voice, steady, soft, carefully placed. If it had been any softer, I might have ignored it. If it had been louder, it would have blended into the chaos. But it existed at exactly the volume necessary to reach me. I turned. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. 2 messy braids. A backpack with stickers peeling at the edges. Shoelaces slightly uneven. Eyes dark, curious, too observant for her age. She stood there, not fidgeting, not smiling, just looking at me the way people only look when they haven't yet learned to pretend. Yes? I asked. Automatically irritated because kindness had become effort. She studied my face like I was a puzzle. Then she asked the sentence. The sentence I didn't expect. The sentence that burrowed beneath every excuse and every lie I'd been telling myself. Why do you walk like you don't want to be here? Not angry. Not rude. Pure. Curious. Honest. The world around me kept moving, cars passing, conversations, footsteps, but inside me, everything froze. What? I said, forcing a laugh. She didn't laugh. You walk like you're trying to leave your life behind you, she said softly. Like your feet are here, but the rest of you isn't. My throat tightened. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, to dismiss her, to brush it off, to move on. I'm fine, I said, defaulting to the most common lie on earth. Her head tilted slightly, sadness passing briefly through her gaze. Okay, she said. She didn't believe me. She didn't argue, either. A woman her mother rushed over then. There you are, she said gently, relief in her voice. Stay close. She gave me an apologetic smile. Sorry. She talks to everyone. The girl didn't apologize. She just held her mother's hand and walked away. But before she disappeared into the stream of people, she looked back one last time, not accusing, not judging, just knowing. And I stood rooted to the sidewalk, watching them fade, feeling like someone had peeled open my chest and let cold air rush in. Walk like you don't want to be here. The sentence didn't shout, it whispered, and whispering wounds more deeply than yelling. I walked home slower than usual, not by choice, because suddenly I didn't trust my own pace. Every movement felt observed not by the girl, but by something inside me I hadn't listened to in years. The hallway of my building smelled like cleaning chemicals and old carpet. My apartment was dim, blinds half closed out of habit rather than preference. Shoes off, keys on the table. Silence. I walked to the mirror and stared. The man staring back looked older than his years, not from wrinkles, but from vacancy. Eyes dull, shoulders curved inward, mouth expressionless, unless forced to move. It was a shock seeing myself honestly for the first time in years. I whispered, almost involuntarily, when did I disappear? Memories surfaced, ones I had shoved into dark corners. My father coughing into a napkin, pretending it was a cold. Hospital rooms, smelling like antiseptic and fear. Doctors talking gently, carefully avoiding the word that was swallowing my world. Funeral suits, platitudes. You'll be strong. He'd want you to be okay. Time heals everything. But time doesn't heal. It covers. And if you never uncover, you forget how to live beneath the bandages. After my father died, I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I became functional, which is worse. Because functional looks healthy. Functional gets praised. Functional is applauded at work, admired by neighbors, considered admirable. Functional is also hollow. I built routines like walls. Same breakfast, same bus route, same conversations, same jokes, same evenings. And I told myself that stability was success. Meanwhile, the child inside of me crawled further and further into silence. The girl on the sidewalk had seen him trapped, smothered, too quiet to speak, and she had named his absence. Why do you walk like you don't want to be here? I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat down on my bed and let the question echo. Is that what I looked like? Someone unwilling to exist? And deeper still, was it true? The next morning, I did something small. Barely anything, but it mattered. I found a piece of scrap paper and wrote, "Walk like you want to be here." I taped it to the inside of my door. It stared at me. I stared back. And every time I reached for the handle, I had to decide, was I going to walk like someone escaping or someone participating? That day at work, nothing changed on the outside. Same emails, same chart discussions, same artificial enthusiasm. But something inside felt different. I noticed people, the woman who always stared into her coffee like it held secrets she couldn't share, the man who forced laughter too loud, as if covering something that couldn't be spoken, the intern blinking too often, overwhelmed but smiling anyway. The city had always been full of ghosts. I had just finally realized I was one, too. On the way home, I walked slower. Not dramatically, just enough to feel the ground. I watched leaves move in the wind. I listened to the rhythm of footsteps. And I breathed deliberately, like each breath had value. The world didn't change, but I did. Just a fraction. Just enough to sense a doorway reopening. A doorway back to myself. And I wondered almost with fear whether I'd ever meet that girl again. Because a single sentence had cracked my life open. And I had no idea where the fracture would lead. Healing never arrives as fireworks. It's quieter than that. It shows up in small permissions. You may rest now. You may feel. You may slow down. You may grieve without apologizing. Weeks passed. Then months. The note stayed on my door. Sometimes I touched it with my fingers before leaving, like a promise I was learning to keep. I didn't become a new person. I became more of who I had buried. I began to read again, not just articles, but stories. Stories that reminded me humans have always been fragile, beautiful, broken, brave. I walked instead of taking buses when I could. I learned how to cook one meal properly, just one, and made it better each time. I started therapy. That was the hardest part. Sitting across from someone who gently asked questions like, "What are you afraid of if you stop being busy? What did losing your father teach you about love? What do you believe you deserve?" I didn't have answers, but the act of considering them slowly unclenched something in me. I cried in her office once, sudden, unstoppable. Afterward, I apologized. She said, "You apologize whenever you show your humanity." And I realized, without intending to, I had been apologizing for being alive, for needing, for hurting, for feeling. The girl had seen that apology on my shoulders. "Why do you walk like you don't want to be here?" Because somewhere, deep down, I thought I wasn't allowed to take up space. One late afternoon, I took the long road home through the park. Golden light spilled across benches, turning everything softer. Families sat on blankets. Teens played music too loud. Dogs tugged leashes with joy. I sat on a bench and let the world exist around me. Then I heard footsteps approach softly. Hi, her. Same braids, slightly longer now. Different backpack, new stickers. Same eyes. Curious, gentle, present. My heart startled, not out of fear, but recognition. "You again," I said, smiling without effort. "Me," she said, sitting beside me like we had done this 1,000 times. She kicked her shoes lightly. Yellow, same bright energy. She studied my face with quiet concentration. "You walk different now." I laughed. "Still watching me, huh?" She shrugged, serious. "People forget they are visible." That sentence hit almost as deeply as the first. I swallowed. "Well, I've been trying." "To be happier?" she asked. "To be here?" I answered. "Really here?" She nodded, satisfied. "Good." We sat in silence a while. Silence with children is different than silence with adults. Adults fill silence with anxiety. Children fill it with attention. Finally, I said softly, "You helped me. More than you know." She didn't look surprised. She plucked a dandelion and rolled it between her fingers. "My dad walked like you," she said, gently, carefully, like a confession. I turned toward her. "Yeah?" She nodded. "He was always smiling so nobody would worry. But at night, his eyes got really quiet, like he was already far away." My chest tightened. "What happened?" I asked softly. "He got sick," she said simply. "And then he didn't get better. No dramatics. Just truth held with dignity." She wasn't looking for pity. She was remembering love. "I asked him once why he walked like he didn't want to be here," she continued. "He hugged me and cried. I guess nobody had asked him before." She looked at me, and there it was. The reason. "When I saw you, I thought, maybe you needed someone to ask you too." Tears stung my eyes. I didn't hide them. "I did," I said. "I just didn't know it." She smiled soft, not triumphant. Sometimes grown-ups think questions make them weak, but sometimes questions make you stay. Her mom called from across the park. She stood. Before leaving, she touched my hand lightly just for a second. "Keep walking like that," she said. "Someone's learning from you." Then she ran off, yellow shoes flashing, laughter trailing behind her. And I sat there, letting tears fall freely, feeling something break, but in a good way. The kind of break that lets light in. That night, I took the note off my door. Not because I was done with it, because I didn't need it to shout anymore. I folded it gently and slipped it into my wallet, where I could carry it close instead of posting it like a warning. And I added something beneath the original words, in smaller handwriting, almost like a secret. Because I am allowed to exist. Allowed. To be flawed, to be present, to be alive without performing. Allowed to slow down and still be worthy. Allowed to grieve and still be lovable. Allowed to show up fully, not the ghost version I had practiced for years. And every now and then, when the world feels heavy again, because it does, and it will, I take the paper out, unfold it, read it slowly, and hear her voice. Why do you walk like you don't want to be here? Then my own voice answers now, too firm, gentle, uncertain. I do want to be here, and I will walk like it. Because one child, on one ordinary day, asked one honest question and gave me my life back.